Good morning, ladies. Welcome to our weekly Tanya Shir. We're studying Shaar Hayichud V'Haemuna, and after, I believe, 2 or 3 months, we have concluded the end of chapter 7 in Shaar Hayichud V'Haemuna, and we're now holding at the beginning of Perek Ches, or chapter 8. If you have a lessons in Tanya, we are holding on page 942. If you have Hebrew Tanya, we're on Daf Pei Hey, beginning of Perek Ches. So actually, we're kind of at what seems anyhow like a bit of a station here in the middle of Shaar Hayichud V'Haemuna. We can generally divide Shaar Hayichud V'Haemuna into 2 sections: the first 7 prokim which we've learned, and the final 5 chapters, which, with Hashem's help, we will continue to learn from here. Shaar Hayichud V'Haemuna is all about the unity and the oneness of Hashem. The discussion about the unity and oneness of Hashem has 2 parts. The first part, the first 7 prokim, the Alter Rebbe talks about how to consolidate, how to put together, how to syndicate the idea that on the one hand, Hashem created the heaven and earth, and it existed, spiritual worlds, physical worlds, and Hashem brought it into existence. And at the same time, to say that the world is in such a state of bittul, such a state of unity and oneness with Hashem, that it's still true to say that nothing else exists besides for Hashem. Ki Hashem hu Elokim b'shamayim v'al v'al mitoch ha'seinoid. The first 7 chapters talk about the union between Hashem and the world, and what that means, to the point that it's true to say that nothing else exists besides for Hashem. Okay. That's the first 7. And so in that sense, Hashem is one, meaning the only real existence, the only true existence, the only existence at all. Point 1. From here, from Perek Ches through the end, as if the first 7 chapters weren't lofty and abstract enough, from here on, the Alter Rebbe begins a new discussion, because when we say, at least what seems like a new discussion, because when we say Hashem is one, we don't only mean that the world isn't an additional and separate existence to Hashem, we also mean that Hashem within himself is one. That the nature of the existence of Hashem is, the word the Alter Rebbe is going to use is Achdus Pshuta, and again we're going to have to try to explain what this means. Achdus Pshuta, a type of unity, which is an essential, an essence type of one, an achdus, a unity in that sense. And this is true, as the Alter Rebbe will immediately begin discussing, even though many qualities are attributed to Hashem, many attributes, many different elements, ideas, etc. And yet there is this unity. The Alter Rebbe will talk about this idea that Hashem is one. Even despite the fact that he's referred to as Keil Rachum V'Chanun and Erech Apayim and Av Chesed V'Emes and all these different types of things, yet there is a unity that prevails deeper than that, that needs to be understood. So this becomes the second part of Shaar Hayichud V'Haemuna. I want to begin with quoting a Rashi. This is from Oz Yoshir that we say every day in davening. Oz Yoshir is in Parshas Beshalach, Chumash Shmos, Perek Tezvav, Pasuk Gimel. So it says, Hashem ish milchama, Hashem ish milchama, Hashem Shmoi. At least I thought the Rashi was here. Oh, I'm wrong. Anyways, this it's not exactly the Rashi that I thought, but anyways, it's a little bit different, but it's still relevant. So in the words in B'Shalach Hashem ish milchama Hashem shmoi, right? Hashem is a man of war, described as a man of war. Hashem shmoi. So Rashi writes like this: Af b'shor shu nilcham v'noikem me'oivav. Even at the time that Hashem is waging war and avenging himself against his enemies, Hashem still, at the same time, is still merciful to have mercy on his creatures. And still continuing to sustain all the rest of the inhabitants of the world. Unlike human kings, when a human king is involved in war, he turns away from all of his other affairs. A human king cannot do two things at once. That's what Rashi says. Hashem ish milchama, Hashem shmoi. Rashi says a human king cannot do two things at once. If he's fighting a war and he's being aggressive and he's avenging his enemies, then he needs to be completely focused on that. He cannot at the same time be merciful and kind to others. You got to come back tomorrow. Now's not a good time. Whereas the Rabbanu Shalom, the Eibashter, we say Hashem ish milchama, Hashem shmoi, meaning that at the same time that the Eibashter is fighting a war in one area, in one place, in other places, Hashem is still continuing to sustain and to and to nurture the rest of the world. And all the other creations. All right, it's not the Rashi I wanted. If I find it, I'll quote it. If I remember where it is, I'll quote it next week. But it's still relevant enough. In other words, the idea is that with the Eibashter, even though we talk about the Eibashter having all of these different facets, different aspects, different things, the Eibashter coexist. They're all at the same time. They all exist together. And the reason for that, as we'll learn, is because the Eibashter is a form of achdus, a form of unity, which is different to the type of unity that human beings experience, or that human beings can even understand. And so this facilitates a process where within Gdliness, within the Eibashter, there is what we perceive to be opposite forces, all working at once and all in perfect unity. Okay. Paraches. V'hinei ma shekosav Rambam Zal. This that the Rambam writes. Shakadosh Baruch Hu Mehusay v'Atzmusay v'Daitoi Hakoil Echad Mamish Achdus Pshuta V'Loi Morkeves Klal. The Rambam writes this about Hashem's knowledge, about Hashem's awareness. We quoted in Perek Zayin of Shaar Hayichud V'Haemuna. In short, the Rambam writes that when a human being knows something, so there's many different aspects to the human being's knowledge. There's the one who knows. There's the thing which is known. There's the knowledge itself. Every element is a thing in its own right. However, with the Eibashter, the Rambam says, Hu hayodeya, v'hu hamada, v'hu adeya. It's all one. Hashem is the one who knows. Hashem is the object of the knowledge. Hashem is the knowledge itself. It's achdus pshuta. It's perfect unity. V'loi morkeves klal. Loi morkeves klal means the unity is not a unity of coming together of a bunch of details. It's not a fusion, right? It's not pressed wood, where you take a bunch of little wood chips and you squash them all together till they become one. But rather, it's achdus pshuta, it's simple unity, v'loi merkeves klal, not comprised of anything at all. So before we move on, just to explain, so begashmius, when it comes to physicality, there is no limit to how many times you can split, you can dissect something on a physical level. Right? If you take numbers, for example, take number 1, right? You cut it in half, you get 2 halves. Cut those in half, you get 4 quarters. Cut those in half, you get 8 eighths. And so it goes more and more and more. How far can it go? Actually, it goes till infinity. You can keep cutting it down further and further and further. Begashmius, you take an object, so you can break it down until it's mamash down to its atoms, and then down to its electrons, and then even further than that. There's always, as much as human beings will have kalim, will have the tools, the ability to do so, to the best of my limited understanding. There's no limit at which point we get to the physical nature or the energy of something where you say, no, you can't split this anymore. You can always cut it down further and further. The same is true in general with intellectuality, with ideas, with seichel, with midas. With any idea, with that matter, it can always be dissected, right? If you say, you have a simple understanding of a concept that 1 + 1 = 2, right? 1 + 1 = 2. Well, actually, can we dissect it? At first, you're like, no, what's there to dissect? But wait, 1 plus 1 equals 2 means that if you have 1, and then you have another 1, and you put them together, it equals 2. It equals 2. That means the idea can be broken down. 1 plus 1 equals 2. So you have to have 1, and then you have to have another 1. You have to add the 2 together, and there's a third reality that emerges as a combination of them both. Every idea, right, can be dissected further and further. Every emotion can be dissected further and further, and actually there's no limit to how much you can brekel, how much you can reduce to crumbs, take apart, analyze, dissect anything physical or anything spiritual. This is the way Hashem made the world. This is the way Hashem made us. A human being, as a result of this, so all existences, basically what they are is they're combinations of many, many different forces, many different aspects, many different things that come together. Actually, the Torah says that when Hashem created the physical world, so what he created was really only 4 elements, right? Eish, Ruach, Mayim, and Afar. Fire, air, water, and dirt. And these things, Eish, Ruach, Mayim, and Afar, this is the fabric from which all physical things come. It's just a question of how you combine them, right? If something has more Eish, then it's usually hotter or hot-tempered or whatever the case may be. But actually, Chassidus and Kabbalah teaches that even Eish, Ruach, Mayim, and Afar themselves also have Eish, Ruach, Mayim, and Afar. And even those also have Eish, Ruach, Mayim, and Afar. So everything, even if you're going to say, this is 1 cup, right? It's not 2 cups, it's 1 cup. Yeah, but if you split the cup, then you'll have 2 halves. So the fact that if you split the cup, you'll have 2 halves means that even if you don't split the cup, even if you leave it at 1, it's not real achdus. It's just a combination, either a physical or a conceptual combination of 2 halves, of 4 quarters, of 8 eighths, etc., etc., etc. So the Alter Rebbe is saying that this is true with regard to all existences. Olam Atzilus has 10 spheres. Each sphere comprised of 10. Each 10 comprised further of 10. And so you can go, in the process of dissecting, you can cut it down further and further and further, Ein Sof. When we say, let's go back to the Rambam, when the Rambam says that the Eibishter is not like that, and when the Eibishter knows something, so it's the Eibishter himself who knows, and the Eibishter himself is the knowledge, and the Eibishter himself is the thing which is known. It's all him. Call it Achdus Pshuta. Achdus Pshuta means not a unity that is a bunch of things put together, but a unity, let's call it an essence unity, an Achdus Pshuta. Loimor Kebes Klal. So the Alter Rebbe says, when the Rambam writes this about Hashem and his Chochmah, Kein ha'inyan mamash b'chol midos of Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This applies to all of Hashem's midas. Uv'chol shmoisav ha'kdoshim, and all of Hashem's names. V'hakinuyim, and all the nicknames, shekinu loy hanavim, that the Nevi'im gave him. V'chazal, kegoin Chanun, Hashem is gracious. V'rachom, and Hashem is merciful. V'chosid, and Hashem is a chosid. V'kayotze b'hen. V'chein ma shenikra chacham, the Eibishter is called a chacham. Tichsiv v'gam hu chacham, it's the pasuk says the Eibishter is a chacham. V'chein ritzoynei, we find that Hashem, the Torah speaks about Hashem's rotzen, the things Hashem wants. Ki roitz Hashem es yireya, v'chafetz chesedu. V'roitz, Hashem wants those who fear Him to be in a relationship with Him. Hashem wants to do chesed. V'roitz b'tshuvasam shel rashoim, v'ein chafetz b'misasam, Hashem wants the Rashoim to do tshuva. He doesn't want them to perish. And Hashem, with pure eyes, gazes upon those who commit evil, waits for them to do tshuva. So we find that the Torah and the Chachamim especially give so many of these human descriptions in describing Hashem: kind, merciful, wise, etc., etc. Ein ritzoynei, says the Alter Rebbe, don't misunderstand what's going on here. Ein ritzoynei v'chachmosoi u'midas chastoi v'rachmanusoi u'sh'ar midos, of all of these attributes, His rotzen, His chachma, His chesed, His rachmanus, His mercy, His kindness, His wisdom, His will, His desire, none of these things, u'sh'ar midos, or any of the other attributes, none of them are meisifim boy riboy. They don't They don't make Hashem more. There's no element of ribui here. There's no element of plurality. There's no duality. There's no different elements of Hashem. V'harkava chas v'sholom, or a combination chas v'sholom. V'mehusa v'atzmusay in Hashem's essence. Elo rather atzmusay, umehusay, uretzoynay, v'chachmosay, ubinosay, v'daitay, umidas chastay, ugvurosay, v'rachmonusay, v'tifartay, aklula mechastay, gvurosay, v'chein mishar midaysav haktoishes, hakoil achtus pshuta mamash, shehihi atzmusay, umehusay. Okay, I read a lot. It's this beautiful lashon, the way the Alter Rebbe writes. I'll read it again. Rather, this says the Alter Rebbe, don't think that this is, in Hashem, it's not a combination, it's not a harkova, it's not a fusion of different things. Rather, the essence of Hashem and His Ratzon, His will, His Chochmah, His Bina, His Das, His Chesed, His Gvura, His Rachmanas, His Tiferes, which is comprised of His Chesed and Gvura, and all the other Midas, Hakoil Achtus Pshuta, it's all Achtus, absolute Achtus Pshuta. Shehihi Atzmusay Musay, it's one with Hashem's essence, and just like Hashem's essence is one, and not a one that you can dissect and analyze and take apart, so too it is true with all of the midas of Hashem. Okay, this is what's written, and as usual, of course, the Alter Rebbe provides very little explanation, but the rest of Chassidus came to write hundreds, thousands of pages and books on this to explain what does this mean and why is it important and why is and by the way, this becomes, according to Chassidus, one of the principles of Jewish faith, right? One of the principles of Jewish faith is that Hashem is Echad, Hashem is one. What does it mean Hashem is one? So the first part of Shaar Hayichud V'Haemuna, we explained that the world is not a separate existence, not a separate entity to Hashem. Second part of Shaar Hayichud V'Haemuna, Alter Rebbe will explain that even within Hashem Himself, there is a something called Achdus Pshuta. There's something called Achdus Pshuta. All right, so to try to explain Al Kaponim just a little bit, what does this mean? Or another explanation for this in Chassidus is Bilti Hischalkus. Bilti Hischalkus again means it's not able to be divided. Try to give a shtickle explanation, a Kaponim just a little bit, and then to try to explain how does this affect our lives, right? So in other words, what are we supposed to do with this? Okay. So point one, what does it actually mean? So I'll give you a quick mashal. So you know, of course, that a man has to put on tefillin every morning, if it's not Shabbos or Yontif or Chol HaMoed, a man has to put on tefillin. The Torah says, you have to put on tefillin on your arm and on your head. What's in the tefillin? 4 parshias. How do we learn 4 parshias? We learn it from the word toitafes. Right? The Gemara says, tat means 2 and pat means 2. Put it together, it's 4 parshias. In the hand tefillin, it's written on 1 scroll. In the head tefillin, it's written on 4 separate scrolls. 4 parshias is tefillin. Fine. The Torah says, when it comes to all mitzvahs, including tefillin, loy toisef alav v'loy tigra mimenu, which means you're not allowed to add and you're not allowed to take away. What does that mean? Let's say a sofer made a pair of tefillin, and by mistake, instead of putting 4 parshias, he put the 5th parsha too. Whatever. What does he put the 5th parsha? You also put the chveis, the aseres adibris in there, right? Why not? Aseres adibris. V'yavta l'orecha kamoicha on yodeh. He put something else in the tefillin, the parsha of Torah. The Torah says, no, the tefillin are not kosher. You have to open it up, take out the extra 5th parsha, now it's kosher. If it has a 5th parsha, it's not kosher. You cannot make a bracha. If you make a bracha, your bracha is a bracha levatol. You're not yoyse the mitzvah of tefillin. Loy sigra, you're not allowed to take 1 out, right? If you have 4, you're not allowed to add 3. If a person says, I have a pair of tefillin, but one parsha is possible. I had it removed, or I didn't get it yet. But if they have a pair of tefillin with 3 parshas, no. You're not allowed. You're not allowed. It's an aveira to put on the tefillin. If you make a bracha, it's a bracha levatol. You're not allowed. Shtelzach hakasha seems difficult to understand. What's the problem? Imagine I come to you and I say, listen, I need to borrow $4,000. Right? So a mashal given to us by one of our Chassidus teachers, and it's stuck in my head because it brings out the point nicely. Imagine I come to you and say, I need to borrow $4,000. And you tell me, listen, Kesselman, I can't give you $4,000. I can give you 3, 2, 1. Here it is. I'm happy to lend it. I don't have $4,000. I have one. Here's $1,000 to lend you. Go borrow from other people the rest. I tell you, you know something? Listen to me. Don't waste my time. Right? I'm a busy guy. Asking you for 4,000. You give me 4,000, I'll take it. Anything less, nothing. So listen, I don't have 4,000. I have 3,999. Imagine I tell you, don't waste my time with 3,900. I need 4,000. 3,999. I need 4. If I said that to you, number one, I'd be very ungrateful. Number two, you look at me like Meshuggah. 2,000 is half of 4. If you need 4, so take 2. Now you only need 2. Take 3. Take 3,999. Now you only need $1 more. How difficult is that? I'm giving you half of what you're asking. I'm giving you 3/4. I'm giving you 99.99999% of it. Say thank you, Yashikoyach, and that's it. If I said no, I'd be a Meshuggah. Even more. Let's say I come to you, I say, I need to borrow $4,000. You tell me, listen, I can't give you $4,000. I can give you 5. I don't want to break a 5, right? I ask you for $4. Yeah, I don't want to break a 5. Here's a 5, borrow 5, give it back to me. No. Imagine I tell you, no. I need 4 or nothing. We said, I'm giving you 4. I'm giving you more, but I'm giving you 4. No, I want 4 or nothing. Doesn't make any sense. In a similar sense, it's difficult to understand. What does it mean? The Eibishter says, put on 4 parshas of tefillin on your head, but the mitzvah is only 4. 3 is nothing, 3 is an aveira, and 5 is an aveira. Imagine I say to you, I'm trying to get $4,000 from you. You're giving me $3,000. Not only are you not helping me, you're hurting me. $5,000, you're hurting me. What are you hurting me? Why is that hurting? Why is 3 parshas of tefillin an aveira, and why is 5 parshas of tefillin an aveira? 3 is 3/4 of 4. All right, so at least with 3 you can say, yeah, but it's not what Hashem wanted. Hashem wanted 4. So you're not doing the whole thing. Fine. But with 5, you're doing everything Hashem asked, just more. Ma baya. And yet the Torah says, no, it's not a mitzvah, it's an aveira, terrible aveira, like Toseflo, you can get malchus for it, I don't know. What's the pshat? The pshat is poshet. When it comes to human beings, when you say 4,000, so 4,000 is just a combination of 4,000 times 1, or 4 times 1. So 3 is 3/4 of that. 5 is even more than that. Because really when I say 4,000, 4,000 is not a single unit. 4,000 is a combination of 4 individual thousands. So 3,000 would be 3/4 of that. 5,000 would be more than that. But when it comes to the Eibishter's mitzvah, we say the rotzen is not mischalak. The rotzen is not mischalak means when the Eibishter says 4 parshas of tefillin, it's not the pshat. There's a value in Shema. There's a value in V'hoyim Shemoya. There's a value in Kaddish Li. There's a value in V'hoy Kiviyach. Hashem says, put them all together, you combine the value of the 4. No! If that were the case, if each one was valuable as far as tefillin is concerned, if each one is valuable in its own right, and you put them together, it gives you the crescendo of tefillin, then yeah, 3 is 3/4. 5 is 5/4. It's not like that. When it comes to the rotzen of the Eibishter, when it comes to a mitzvah, the pshat is there's something here which is higher than all of the above. There's something here which is higher than Shema, and higher than Kaddish Li, and higher than V'hoy Kiviyach, higher than V'hoyim Shemoy. There's something here which is higher than everything. What is it? It's the Eibishter himself. The Eibishter says, I'm choosing that you'll connect with me when you'll do it in this particular way. So then you need these 4 in order to make the connection. Any less or any more would not work. There's a writer for Chabad.org. He wrote such a nice article many, many years ago. I just remember because it's stuck in my head. So he does this question and answer session on. He does it. I think it's Chabad.org or Ask the Rabbi or something like that. So he had this little article. If I can find it, I'll send it to one of you. he has this little article where a guy writes to him about why Judaism is so obsessed with details. 6 hours between Fleshix and Milchix, and if I wait 5 hours and 55 minutes as was. And Shabbos you do this, and Yom Tov you have to do that. Does God really care what's in my pot, and which order I put on my shoes and my socks, and then how I conduct myself over here and over there, and the right side before the left side? So why is Judaism so obsessed with details? He writes it very well. And then the questioner, at the end of the question, says, Rabbi, I wrote this question to you a few months ago. Why are you not responding? Do you not have an answer? So he writes back, and the rabbi writes back. He says, he says, I wrote an answer to you a couple of months ago. And I emailed it to you. Your email address is, Yankel the questioner @gmail.com. He says, but when I sent the answer, I left out the dot before. By .com instead of gmail.com, I figured, what's the difference? A dot? Who cares? A dot a hin, a dot a hair. I left out the dot. He says, I tried so many times, it didn't go through. Can you explain to me why it didn't work? He says, you think the computer system is so specific, so particular, so difficult to work with, that if I don't put the dot over there, then the email's not going to go through, right? And if I put the dot somewhere else, I leave out the dot, it's just a dot. He's using it as a mashal, obviously. And what he's trying to say is, mitzvahs have to be understood in a different context. Mitzvahs have to be understood as the Eibusher saying, here is how you're going to connect to me. But what's connect to me? Connect to me is the Eibusher who is indescribable, infinite, beyond everything, etc., etc. The Eibusher says, this is the way. So if this is the way, means this is the way. You veer off a drop to the right and you veer off a drop to the left, then yes, in human terms, you're doing almost what the Eibusher wants, or what the Eibusher wants plus more, but when you see it from the other side as being a connection that the Eibusher created to the infinite, then it takes on a whole new meaning because the Eibusher said, this is, for reasons beyond human understanding, the Eibusher said, this is the way. Like gmail.com has to have a dot. Ask the average person in the street, ask me, was it a dot? Why is it not going to work? I don't know. But that's the way it is, and that's the end of it. I'll tell you, because this is a women's shir, I'll tell you, the Rebbe would often give a mashal for this. They would say that a positive mashal, they would say when a balabosta, when a woman sets up her home in such a way that she wants that the home should be the most conducive place to the health, to the well-being of her family, to the health, the well-being of herself, of her husband, of her children, physically, spiritually, everything. So the Rebbe brings this mashal, look at the sikhs in a few places, fascinating. The Rebbe says the balabosta will do it in a way where every detail of the house is just so, it's just right to get the maximum benefit to create the type of home that she's creating. And if somebody walks into the home and says, well, what's the big deal? I move the couch like this, I move the rug a little bit like that, what difference does it make? The balabosta will correct them. No, you did it wrong. Es darf sein dafka azoy. It has to be bedafka like this. Right? Sometimes a person will articulate an idea. Chassidus says there's many ways to articulate the idea, but for some nafshiyasdika reason, the person says no. We have to say it like this. Why? But it's the same idea. I could say it in different words. What's wrong? No, you say it. Sometimes you make it better. Sometimes you make it worse. But I'm still saying the same idea. But you're not saying it right. That means there's something that's being communicated here, which is deeper than all of this. And it comes out bedafka, and therefore there is specifically the details have to be this specific way, because in the end the details are not really about the details. In the end the details are a facilitation process to bring out a reality, a deeper, call it reality, a godliness, and a lakus, which is deeper than everything. Okay. So let's wrap this up. So a similar idea that the Rebbe is saying is with the concept of Achtus Pshuta. This is Achtus Pshuta. The Eibusher has so many different midos. Chochmah, Bina, Das, Chesed, Gvur, Tiferes, Hashem is Mulchama, sometimes Hashem is fighting war, sometimes Hashem appears, as Rashi says, as an elderly sage man with a long white beard, teaches the Torah. What do you mean Achtus Pshuta? So the answer is because none of these attributes, aspects, really encapsulate who Hashem is and what Hashem is. So what is Hashem really? Hashem really in his essence is beyond all of this. Now, because he's beyond all of it, therefore Hashem also has Chachma and Rachamim and Chesed and all the rest of it. But all of these attributes are not adding, they're not adding a riboy v'harkova, they're not adding any type of addition, they're not making Hashem bigger or more complex, right, or deeper or anything like that, because it all emerges from the Achdus Pshuta of Hashem. I'll give you one more quick example, right? You say, 1 plus 1 equals 2, yeah? 1 plus 1 equals 2, yeah. Works. Always. It works for chairs, it works for tables, it works for Sfarim, it works for windows, it works for houses, cities, countries, galaxies, ideas, moments in time, weeks, months, years, everything. Wow. Imagine the person says, as you explain to me how many more scenarios the idea applies to, the idea becomes bigger and bigger. You'll laugh at such a statement. The idea is not becoming bigger. The idea is the same idea. It expresses itself in a million different ways, but the idea is not inherently about bottles of mashka or about chairs, or tables, or time, or idea, or svarim, or anything. The idea is an idea which is beyond them all. It expresses itself in all these different types of things, and therefore there's the achdus pshuta prevails in everything. Okay, so this is what Alter Rebbe is saying. Again, this is the simple, obviously there's more to it like everything, but this is the simple understanding what Alter Rebbe is saying, that the Eibishter himself is beyond all of this, expresses himself in all of these ways, and therefore, like Rashi writes, he can do it all at the same time. He can have chesed and gvur tiferes all at the same time. A human being can't. Why? Because for a human being, chesed is one thing, gvur is another thing. For the Eibishter, it's the same Eibishter, either in the form of chesed or gvur. Okay. A concept you're all familiar with, and that you all understand. But here it is articulated in Perek Ches of Shaar Hayichud V'Haemuna. Okay. Now what do we do with this? What do we do with this in our lives? So it's interesting. It's like it's written in such abstract terms, and we talk about it in such, lofty terminology. But tachlis on the table, I believe that for nowadays, for 2024, when we're sitting and learning the words of the Alter Rebbe, the lesson for us couldn't be more relevant, couldn't be more of a punch in the gut to our lives. And I'll tell you exactly what I'm talking about. I believe when the history books of our times will be written, they will say about our time specifically that this was the most distracted human era in all of human existence. But dafka, because of the nature of the world we live in, and all of the advancements that are taking place in the world we live in, which is just so shocking that nobody can even hope to keep up with it. Even the technology itself cannot keep up with itself. As a result of this, we're distracted. What happens when a person is distracted is that their mind is frayed. They're being pulled in a million different directions. They run from thing to thing. They cannot get a sense of peace, of focus in their lives. And as a result of that, everything is compromised. The usage of our time compromised, the quality of our relationships compromised, the effectiveness in everything that we do is compromised because we're multitasking. We're on the treadmill while we're listening to a shiur, while we're trying to discipline our children, while we're planning our next summer vacation, while we're responding to emails, while we're listening to a voice note from somebody who we feel guilty about that we should have gotten back to. I mean, all at the same time. Not a criticism, just a simple reality of the nature of the world that we live in. And everybody's looking for solutions, right? How do we solve this, right? So what do? We get secretaries, and we go for, my favorite, we go for time management courses that take up incredible amounts of time and incredible amounts of money to learn how to manage our time. And we complain to others. As a wise man likes to say, nobody's ever too busy to tell you how busy they are. We're exhausted at the end of the day. We can't sleep. Because of all the unresolved stuff, we make lists, we make to-do lists, and then we make lists of our to-do lists. I mean, maybe it's just me, but I don't think so. We are incredibly distracted, and the more technology we have to simplify our lives, the more complicated it gets. So what's the solution? Chassidus has something to say about this. Chassidus calls this Achdus Murkeves, where you're trying to combine millions, billions, trillions of ideas, of thoughts, of little pieces of life. You're trying to compact them all into one solid life. We're trying to piece our lives together from a whole bunch of different things. It doesn't work because it's not who we are. So what is the solution? The solution is that from deep, let me say this. The reason why we're being pulled in a million different directions by superficial things, by things outside of us, is because within ourselves we're living with a dichotomy. We're living frazzled. We're living without a clear or a sufficiently clear picture of what we're supposed to do and who we are, our identity. Right? The reason why we get offended when people say things to us, because we're like, oh wait, maybe they're right. We ourselves question our identity and our existence within our own heads. Somehow, for one reason or another, the outside distraction, the outside clamor has created internal distraction and internal clamor, pulling at us from all different directions. The solution to that is not a time management course. Not that I have anything against time management courses. But time management is not going to help, because if you're still frazzled internally, you're always going to be frazzled externally. The reason why people cannot, I'm not talking about people who have conditions. I'm talking about, if you don't, regular v'mazakt, healthy human beings. The reason why we can't focus on things, the reason why we're constantly being torn up in life by a million different things, is not because we have too many things pulling on us. It's because we don't have internal clarity in here in terms of what it is that we're supposed to do, because we don't have internal clarity in here of who it is that we essentially are. And it's painful because deep down we all exist in a realm, in a world called Achdus Pshuta, which means somewhere deep inside of us, we know that there is a mantra, there is an identity, there is a definition to who we are, that if we live with is the ultimate litmus test to decipher immediately what I should do and what I shouldn't do, and how I should spend my time and how I shouldn't, and what I should procrastinate and what I shouldn't, everything. What is that? That's the words Ani loy nivreisi elu l'shamash eskoini, which means I was not created for any other purpose other than to serve Hashem. I saw recently a letter from the Rebbe. It's printed actually in English, where the Rebbe writes to somebody about anxiety, somebody who is struggling with anxiety, and they write to the Rebbe that they themselves don't fully understand why they're so anxious. And they're asking the Rebbe for help, and the Rebbe says, anxiety comes from living a life that isn't true to who you are. Anxiety comes from lying to ourselves consciously, lying to ourselves subconsciously. Again, we're not talking about chronic anxiety. We're not talking about people who struggle like that. We're talking about with regular healthy human beings, in general, who deal with anxiety. Basically Jews, right, who live anxious lives. And the Rebbe says anxiety comes when we're not honest with ourselves. We don't live a life practically that is mat'im, that is congruent with the identity of who we are spiritually. There's no achdus. When there's no achdus, we get pulled in a million different directions. What about when there is achdus? What about when a person does have that incredibly sharp sense of focus? What does that mean? That they don't do anything all day other than sit with their arms folded and go, Ani lo nivreisi l'shamash eskoini? No. If they have the internal sense of clarity, if we master it on the inside, if I know my shlichus, and we all do know our shlichus, if we master it truly, if we take ownership over it, then we use it as the captain of our ship to steer through life. And then whenever any decision comes to us, we immediately know, yes or no. It's for me, it's not for me. I do this, I don't do this. I engage in this or not. We know immediately because we do a gut check. And our gut is healthy because we have a healthy sense of identity. If it's something we're supposed to do, we throw ourselves into it immediately. Or as soon as we're supposed to. We get it done, and then we move on. And if not, then we ignore it. And we don't ever think about it again. We don't feel guilty about it because we know it's not for us. There was a Rav, can conclude with this, there was a Rav in Johannesburg, South Africa, who once came to the Rebbe for Yichudis. He was a chaplain in the hospitals in South Africa. The Rebbe told him that he should try to arrange that the inmates, the Jewish inmates in prisons, should be able to light Hanukkah menorah. And he tells the Rebbe, fire in a prison, Rebbe says, is there anybody that you have good connections with, set up security, precautions, whatever, it would bring them so much optimism and hope, it could be such an amazing thing for them. Anyways, he tells the Rebbe that he's friendly with the chief of police, or, whatever, he has a connection, and maybe he can talk to him. So the Rebbe says, okay, when you go out of the room of Yichudis, go call him. You can call him from my office, the Rebbe says, from the office of the Maskiras. So listen to this. So he tells the Rebbe, I can't call him when I walk out of Yichudis. It's 4 o'clock in the morning in Johannesburg. I can't call him now, I have to wait. The Rebbe says, what do you mean? If you call him at 4 o'clock in the morning, then he'll see that it's really important. Of course you should call him at 4 o'clock in the morning. Then he'll know that you know that you're calling him at 4 o'clock in the morning, and then he'll see how important it is. That was the Rebbe's answer. So the guy, his name was Rabbi Katz. He said he walked out of the Rebbe's room. The Rebbe told you to call now. You can't not call now. He walks into Maskiras. The Rebbe told me to make a phone call. All right, I think he said he had the chief of police's secretary call him. First time he was getting a phone call from America. And he calls the guy, 4 o'clock. He calls him 4 o'clock in the morning. He says, listen, I'm sorry to wake you, but I was just in the Yichudis by the Rebbe. We had a very important guy. I must communicate this message to you immediately because it's so pressing. And the chief of police could have cursed the heck out of him. Like, what the heck is wrong with you? Never heard of office hours. But the Rebbe said. So he called him. He said the chief of police told him, oh, wow, Rabbi. This must be really important to you if you decided to call me at 4 o'clock in the morning. Now that I can see how important it is to you, now we'll do it. First of all, even who thinks that way? Right? Who thinks, instead that you wake up a person at 4 o'clock in the morning to show them how important it is? Often a Ruach HaKodesh of the Rebbe, that the chief of police would literally say, the fact that you're calling me now shows me how important it is, etc., etc. But what I see in the story more than anything is like the Rebbe's approach. It's like, what do you mean? I'm a Yid. I have a shlichus. In this case, it was this Rav's shlichus to get the Jews to be able to perform the mitzvah of lighting Hanukkah menorah in prison. 4 o'clock in the morning is not a problem. 4 o'clock in the morning is an opportunity. That's all. It's an opportunity. And an opportunity that we can use to do the shlichus, right? It's called Achdus Pshuta. In other words, you have such a strong internal compass, let's say, such deep internal clarity, that no matter what you look at, you immediately see how this serves my shlichus. Or if it doesn't serve my shlichus, you don't see it anymore. It's no longer existing in your vision or in your peripheral vision. It's gone because it's not for me, and you just move on. The Rebbe said once, people were challenging him about mitzvah tefillin, right? All sorts of issues. The Rebbe says, I don't understand. There's 613 mitzvahs. I chose mitzvah tefillin. I believe that's my shlichus. This is what I'm supposed to. You don't like it? There's 612 other mitzvahs. Go make mitzvah shatnez. That's what turns you on. Go make a chveis, I don't know. Mitzvah don't lie. Mitzvah, whatever, choose something. 613 mitzvahs. Choose one. It says, this is my shlichus. This is my inyan. In other words, no Jew was put onto this world just to make another Jew's life miserable. That's not why we're here. Yes, at times we have to go through tremendous challenges and obstacles, absolutely. But the purpose of the going through those obstacles is to get somewhere. There's a destination. A Jew needs to be focused on his destination. If we lived this way, I don't know that we would necessarily have less challenges. But they wouldn't bog us down. In that sense, we would have much less challenges. They wouldn't bog us down that way. This is the call of Chassidus, and it's a very provoking idea. External confusion comes from internal confusion. External lack of clarity comes from internal lack of clarity. In businesses, they say this all the time. If you have 1,000 employees and nobody knows what they're doing, everybody's running around the circles, the problem is not only the employees. The problem is the boss, the leader. The leader hasn't set a clear enough mission in what it is that needs to be done. And the moment that's clarified, the clarity trickles down from the top to the bottom. And so it is from within a person. A Yid, needs to live with absolute ironclad clarity. Achdus pshuta. Who am I? What am I doing here? What's my shlichus? And from there, everything flows. There are questions. There's ways to deal with that too. A mashpia, write to the Rebbe, say a kapitel tilim. Sometimes if you cannot get clarity, it means I'm not supposed to have clarity right now. And you go with there. But the more the person is a united being within themselves, the more they themselves don't live in agony and in mixed messages and confusion, then the more there is synthesis and peace, everybody around them. And by the way, this is incredibly true with families. Incredibly. The clearer the husband and the father and the mother, the heads of the household, will be within themselves, as a rule, that clarity trickles down to the children. It's not the kind of stuff you can fake. It's got to be real and it's got to be deep. But children who grow up with mixed messages have a very hard time with it. The more unified the message, the more unified the reality is internally, the more that clarity spreads and is contagious, so to speak, to everything and everyone around. All right, have a wonderful week.